After supporting 2 years of brazen display of depravity by Israeli terrorists against Palestinians in Gaza, some European countries are now pretending to finally care about humanity. France announced yesterday that it would recognize the State of Palestine at this year's United Nations General Assembly, and UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, too, has shed crocodile tears on the suffering of people in Gaza in his latest video message. The BBC, which acted as the official propaganda outlet for the Israeli genocide, too, is now claiming to care about the same journalists who it tried to throw under the bus through its highly diabolical and severely compromised media coverage in the past 22 months. Convicted felon and suspected pedophile Donald Trump's grotesque stand on this issue hasn't surprised many either. Let's look at these developments in greater detail. As I speak, more than 122 Palestinians have lost their lives in Gaza. Let that sink in. 122 innocent, unarmed Palestinians, including babies and children, have died. You know why? Because Israeli terrorists led by mentally deranged war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu, supported by Donald Trump and members of his administration, Keir Starmer and his cabinet colleagues, Emmanuel Macron and Friedrich Merz from Germany, has decided to deprive 2 million population of food, water, and medicine since May this year. For 3 months, they have collectively decided to deprive every single Palestinian of food, water, and medicine. What does it say about these depraved people? That's how evil they are. Together, they have enjoyed the sight of mass starvation of Palestinians while they colluded with each other to drop powerful bombs on these unfortunate civilians, including women and children. As for the UK, it continued to deploy its spy planes from its military base in Cyprus to help Israelis slaughter more and more Palestinians with impunity. And I'm not even talking about the arms supply from the UK to Israeli terrorists. So whichever way you look at it, you can only see just how depraved and mentally deranged and barbaric these so-called leaders from the civilized world have been. So when Keir Starmer released this video message a short while ago, I wasn't surprised by his continued dishonesty and support for Israeli barbarity.
The appalling scenes in Gaza are unrelenting. And I know the British people are sickened by what is happening. The images of starvation and desperation are utterly horrifying. The denial of aid to children and to babies is completely unjustifiable, just as the continued captivity of hostages is completely unjustifiable. Hundreds of civilians have been killed while seeking aid, children killed whilst collecting water. It is a humanitarian catastrophe and it must end. We've put millions of pounds of aid into Gaza. We've announced an extra 40 million this year. But that help is not getting in. So we're scaling up our work. We are accelerating efforts to evacuate children from Gaza who need critical medical assistance, bringing them to the UK for specialist medical treatment. News that Israel will allow countries to airdrop aid into Gaza has come far too late. But we will do everything we can to get aid in via this route. We are already working urgently with the Jordanian authorities to get British aid onto planes and into Gaza. More broadly, alongside our closest allies, I am working on a pathway to peace in the region, focused on the practical solutions that will make a real difference to the lives of those who are suffering in this war. That pathway will set out concrete steps to turn the desperately needed ceasefire into a lasting peace. Recognition of a Palestinian state has to be one of those steps. I'm unequivocal about that. But it must be part of a wider plan which ultimately results in a two-state solution and lasting security for Palestinians and Israelis. That is the way to ensure that recognition is a tool of maximum impact to improve the lives of those who are suffering. And that must always be our ultimate goal. The fact that we've rebuilt the UK's standing on the world stage enables us to rally international action behind real, purposeful, practical solutions. That is what we've done with the Coalition of the Willing in support of Ukraine. And that is what must happen in the Middle East, building a new international coalition behind a plan to end the suffering now and for the long term.
Did you notice the obvious? Not once did this despicable man blame or criticize Israel for the ongoing Holocaust in Gaza. After refusing to allow Palestinian children to be treated in the UK for more than a year, he is now pretending to suddenly care about their well-being. When food and water are the most precious items these children need, he is still not made any concrete announcement to alleviate their suffering. Who would have thought that the Labour Party in the UK would produce its second heartless and cruel war criminal so soon after Tony Blair soaked his hands in blood of 1 million Iraqis? And when the moral compass of the head of the country is so twisted, how can you expect the state-owned media called the BBC function impartially? It's therefore not surprising that this organization called the BBC has willingly chosen to turn rogue by proudly siding with the genocidal regime of Israel. For months, this rogue organization, funded by British taxpayers, dehumanized Palestinians and protected Israelis for their war crimes with propaganda headlines and reporting. You can't underestimate BBC's role during this genocide. This organization has a global reach on all platforms. Its ability to whitewash Israeli crimes meant that those perpetrating the most brutal and inhuman crimes against humanity in Gaza felt relieved about any adverse global PR. Now, the BBC has issued a statement pretending to care about the journalists who risk their lives in Gaza to report for this rogue organization. The BBC can try as much as it can to redeem its image. But the fact is that history would remember this organization as an entity which participated in the brutal slaughtering of hundreds of thousands of people. Every single individual who played even a minute role in making light of Palestinian suffering would forever have blood of innocent children and babies on their hands. They would no doubt be also haunted by karma. Even the CNN now gets this. Watch this pundit on this American outlet.
Why did it take this long? I mean, in November of last year, the International Criminal Court issued a warrant for the arrest of Benjamin Netanyahu for the war crime of starvation 8 months ago, before Israel cut off all food, all water, all electricity into the Gaza Strip for 3 months. And to say the United States is silent, it's much, much worse than that. We are profoundly complicit and deeply responsible. It is our weapons that enforce this starvation. It is our diplomatic efforts that prevent international justice from being done. The blood is on our hands as Americans because it is our weapons that is responsible for those children starving to death.
No blood for the hands of Hamas?
Hamas has
Is
lots
there no
of...
blood
No,
on
no,
their
no.
hands?
Why don't you let me finish? How about that? Okay?
I'm just
Okay?
asking.
Yes,
You
of
blamed
course.
Israel and you blamed the U.S., but we haven't heard Hamas yet.
I actually have one of my closest friends in college was blown up by Hamas. I have probably a lot more experience with suffering from Hamas, with all due respect, than you do. Let's say this. If we want to see who is more to blame for the starvation of children in Gaza, Hamas or Israel, let CNN in. Israel has not allowed Western journalists in since October 7th. Let them go in, let CNN go in and decide for themselves. How about that? How about it?
How about Hamas releases the hostages and
Yeah,
gets a
and let me
ceasefire?
think. What do you think would happen if Hamas
Peter,
released
just give me
the
one
hostages?
second. Scott, let me ask.
Yesterday, Emmanuel Macron said he would announce the recognition of independent state of Palestine next month in New York at the UN General Assembly. However, if you pay attention to the joint statement issued by the UK, France, and Germany, you can see that the pledge has already been diluted. Now, the announcement on Palestinian state is linked to age-old nonsense of broader peace negotiations. This was after Trump rejected Macron's announcement on Palestine, saying effectively that he doesn't take him seriously. Maybe these three coward politicians decided to issue a toned down joint statement to placate Trump.
He's a different kind of a guy. He's okay. He's a team player, pretty much. But here's the good news: what he says doesn't matter. It's not going to change it.
Meanwhile, at least 221 UK MPs cutting across party lines have signed a joint letter asking Starmer to recognize Palestine.
Right, I just want to bring you an update on our main story this evening. Those cross-party MPs who have signed a letter calling on the UK to recognise a Palestinian state. Well, in just the last few minutes, the organiser of that letter, Sarah Champion, who's also chair of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, has said that there are 221 MPs who have now put their name to this letter. The letter has been published on Ms Champion's social media site on her X feed. And I'm just going through the list of names and the names that you may well expect to be on here. Leader of the Liberal Democrats, Sir Ed Davies, put his name to it. The joint leaders of the Green Parties, Carla Denyer and Adrian Ramsey, put their names to it. Stephen Flynn, the SNP's Westminster leader, has also put his name to it as well as from the Conservative side, Kit Malthouse, Sir Edward Lee, as well as the Mother of the House, the Right Honourable Miss Diane Abbott.
To me, this is too little too late. The UK and Europe have the power to provide the much-needed food to Gaza's starving population, but they have chosen to not do so. Instead, they're issuing fake and hollow statements. People are not fools. This wouldn't change historians' perspective about their support for Gaza's man-made starvation and the genocide of up to 2 million people. That's a fact. That's it from me. Thank you very much for your support of this platform and our journalism on buymeacoffee.com and Patreon. If you too think that our journalism is worth supporting, then you too should consider becoming part of it. Details are there in the description of this video. In the meantime, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.